So let's go ahead and do it. I'll call the meeting to order. Did anyone have any, after reviewing the minutes, any suggestions or revisions or things where the minutes could be improved from our January 31 meeting? Oh, Marcia, can you do the roll call? You're right. Thanks. Moving too fast.
All right. Am I?
Press the button.
Hello, Deborah. Hi. Good. All right, a roll call. Deborah Ossoff. Here. Earlene Dotson. Terry England. Here. Christine Fisher. Here. And I am here. Tony Hobson.
Here. Here.
Oh, there it is. Okay. Michelle Hopkins. Delisa Hutchins. Mike Good.
Here.
Laura will not be here. Sally Westheimer. Christy Phillips. Here. All right.
All right, we do have a quorum.
Yes, sir.
Perfect. Now we'll go into the review and approval of minutes. Anyone have any suggested changes? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Deb, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Terry. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Minutes are approved. Next, turn it over to Shara for the mission moment.
Exciting. So I am pleased to finally share kind of our relaunch of the Promise Reader. Wanted to give you a snapshot because Promise Reader is really kind of hitting on all aspects of what we do. The literacy component to kind of reinforce the importance of reading, the family engagement piece because people can use Promise Readers at their leisure, on their cell phone, when they're at home. Really kind of doing some efforts for outreach of us because it's going to drive some social media traffic. We have postcard companion pieces for our authors that will be sent out to parents as well. Welcome. And self-reported pieces that will be rolling out during Preschool Promise Week so that this is perpetuated and continued. We also are using it as an opportunity for ambassadors because every Promise Reader officially becomes a Preschool Promise ambassador committed to our mission. And it also gives us an opportunity to brag, right, on our literacy outcomes, what we're doing in terms of kindergarten readiness. So I just kind of wanted to share with you the components of what we look at when we build a campaign to make sure that it's not just advertising, it's not just kindergarten readiness, but it is all those pieces coming together. This is the premiere of our new Promise Reader logo that you will see branded on all of our Promise Reader things. We will be sending all this out on social media at the end of the week because March is National Reading Month. Here's a kind of collage of behind the scenes, some good things that were happening as we continue to tape. We have 14 Promise Readers who are scheduled, and we are so pleased to be working with Refined Media. You will also, Refined Vision Digital Media. It's hard to give someone credit when you don't get their name right? I want to get them right. They're also out in the hall doing some mission moment clips to ask all of you to share with them why you love Preschool Promise, and it'll also be an enrollment push collage. So they have really just been fantastic partners. If you will remember, we used them last year for our annual meeting video, and we're continuing to use them local, diverse vendors, CPS school graduates, right? So we're pleased to work with them. So with that, I think Hector is going to queue up for me to give you a snapshot of behind the scenes of what you will see eventually polished up and cleaned up as each of our Promise Reader segments.
Today's story is my granddaughter, and I'm proud to have her share this time with me. So what are we going to read today?
We're going to read I Promise, written by Laura James.
She did what she normally does when she could not figure out an answer. She asked her grandma. When you get confused, do you ask somebody other than your mom, maybe your grandma, or maybe another adult?
She chews on everything. She's about to get some teeth. 1, 2, 3 fingers in her mouth. She drools on you and me. Oh, have you ever had someone to leave and go away from you? How did that make you feel? It was 4 o'clock and still dark outside. Just remember Sada, the girl who loves to smile.
And a smile on my face. I believe in me because I'm so great.
When we had the moon, Auntie had the sun. The end. Did you all enjoy that?
Okay, are you great?
All right.
Thank you all. So each of our promise readers have their own segment. They brought their favorite book. I'm pleased to say that the mayor filmed his segment this afternoon. So we will have those rolling out for you as part of our promise reader campaign.
Any questions about that?
When do we get to be promise readers?
Today is the day. You can sign up.
No.
We can sign up. We have scheduled dates at the studio. We will also do on-site if someone would like to do that. Like today, we were filming at a preschool. So the list is open. We have to get you in that window for the next 3 months because after that window closes, the module is to allow everybody to take their own using their tablet or their cell phone. Right? Budget's tight. We're really doing filming there, and the rest is on our own. So if you have recommendations, please send them my way. I have to say a special thank you to our communications team that made that happen. Tiffany Ware with the Brown Girls Project. Of course, Laura Carr. Thank you, Laura, for doing that. And Kenitra Mathis as well, working with the Refined Vision Digital Media Company.
Any other questions on that? All right, we'll move into the executive director's report.
Okay, I sent the narrative executive director's report around as usual and just wanted to highlight some things for you. One, we're excited to see that Children's Hospital is initiating a new early childhood education quality improvement initiative that is focused on mental health and on waiting lists and how we move those down. Also highlight to you kind of where we are with our personnel issues. We are still actively searching for a program and evaluation manager with the help of Centennial. We have advertisements out for expanding our P team members through Indeed, and our communications position right now has not been posted because we are still using an augmented contractor and vendor model to do that until we get the other positions settled. I also want to take the opportunity to introduce one of our new QI specialists. Raise your hand, Leslie. Great, welcome to the team. You all will see a highlighted profile of her like you did with all of our new staff and team members on social media, and that will send to you in our Board of Managers update as well. Also to give you an update on our attendance pilot, we have worked very carefully with Innovations to identify the top 15 sites that we know we're having attendance challenges. Now the next step is to invite them to be involved in a pilot and get their input on what may work best for them. We know that that will be a struggle because some of our top kind of early adopters have already shared with them that they are so busy with other tasks, returning enrollment and summer coming up, that it is not the optimal time for them. So what we want to do is co-design that pilot with them based on the recommendations that Innovations has provided. So we'll give you an update at the May meeting. I did not want to list the sites that had all of those attendance challenges without discussing with them whether or not they wanted to be involved with the pilot. So we will be moving forward with that. Also to share with you all that enrollment season is now. There was a typo in the ED report. Enrollment for our tuition assistance year starts on Monday, April 24th, with the actual tuition assistance year starting August 14th. So I bought a stack of Enroll Now cards, and I would like every board member to take them with you, share them. These are our brand new, hot off the press, delivered yesterday Enrollment Now cards, and they have the QR code on the back that will take families directly to the application to streamline the process, right? Now is the time. You will see some expanded kind of outreach and enrollment activities here, thanks to Flo as our outreach and enrollment manager and her team. So please be on the lookout for people if you're going to be at opening day this year. For Red's opening day, you'll see some people with Ask Me About Preschool Promise t-shirts along the parade route. You will see us in the Red's yearbook. You will see us not only on our usual bus wraps and billboards, but now we're also at the bus shelters with our QR codes as well. So we're really trying some new things and some new acquisition mailing postcards where we picked and targeted some zip codes that we know had multifamily dwellings and a lot of parents. So we have 3,000 new parents that haven't been in our database before that we're doing touch base points and outreach with that will get these postcards by this time next week. So we're kind of amping it up. We would appreciate it if when you see something, billboard, bus wrap, anything, if you'll just send us a picture with you and that, because we always need social media content. We would love to hear about it. The other thing too is looking at our dashboard. We're on track, right? You will see that most of our projects, initiatives, and key measures are green. I want to highlight for you that our enrollment goal is at 91%, knowing that at the end of April, we will see another uptick because as people plan for the extended learning session, it is only available for people that have previously been enrolled, right? So we see a little bit of peak there, but we're pretty proud of our 91% this year. You will also see our parent education opportunities grow as we start to roll out these Promise Reader initiatives and our new parent postcard series that is, again, at the printer and ready to roll out. I will call attention to Objective 3 in the second column. We still are in progress on that. We really don't take that as a ding yet because that was a 2025 objective. We went ahead and included it on the dashboard because we were making some progress, only 13%, but we have another 2 years to accomplish that. Early childhood education staff supported. I anticipate that that may remain a yellow, right? This is the opportunities that we offered are really dependent upon teachers, educators, under individuals taking advantage of it. We have the opportunities out there. It is whether or not providers have the time and the capacity and the will to do that. So we made 50 scholarships available to the NFACC conference. We had 10 that were able to take advantage of that in Atlanta. So we'll continue to do that, but we know that our numbers may not reach our ambitious goals because of other things that are going on with providers. I will also say in terms of workforce, we are pleased to continue to partner with 4C for the Career Navigator that we hear now has 50 candidates that are going through the process, so yay, we're excited about that. We're also doing other touch point things like National Preschool Teacher Appreciation Day that we celebrated by dropping off gifts to 70 different sites. These are our new Preschool Promise teacher appreciation shirts that we delivered, right? That all of our teachers were proud to wear, just as a small thank you to them, and also to use when they're out in the community, because our goal is to have everyone who is part of our CPP network and team get asked about Preschool Promise. I will admit I am sometimes very friendly with people's children in the supermarket and other places because we really want to encourage them to be engaged with us and join Preschool Promise. So, any questions about the dashboard before I jump? Hopefully be all green next time you see me in May. That's our goal. Okay? Also, you'll see our enrollment numbers here, almost where we were last year, but you will notice we have exceeded the number of applications processed with 1,242 compared to 1,221 last year, right? So that means we're working to get people interested, engaged, submitting those applications, but you'll also see our denial total is higher as well. So we're going to keep working on that. Then, as always, I share with you all as part of my director's report our ongoing kind of challenges and opportunities. And I've really kind of done a chart too, so you can see where our strategic objectives and part of our strategic plan is lined up with the challenges and opportunities that we see, right? Always enrollment and attendance, workforce is at the top, how we continue to support our family and community providers, what happens with those funds from ODJFS, and for everyone to remember, we are not yet in a period where we've returned to growth, right? We are still in a stabilization period. We may be coming out of crisis period. I'm not really confident about that yet, but stabilization is really our focus. And as always, our overarching and commitment to high quality. As a team, we think about these strategic questions on a regular basis. How might we contribute to stabilization and maintain the investments that have already been made in Preschool Promise? How do we expand high-quality learning environments and make sure that they stay high quality? How can we make sure that the children that need us the most benefit the most from us? And how can we make everything that we do more accessible to the families and parents in this community, right? And then ultimately, how should we measure success? That's an ongoing process that we have a conversation about. In light of all this, I also want to share with you all and try to keep eyes on the big picture. Groundwork Ohio did a great job of releasing their early childhood dashboard so that now we have some comparison bases of where we stand. And in that report, they said that they know that 62.1% of children statewide are not demonstrating kindergarten readiness. Only 37.9% are. In Hamilton County, only 26% of the economically disadvantaged children are showing up for kindergarten ready. What we know at CPP over the last 2 years, for children who attend a high-quality preschool with tuition assistance from Preschool Promise, their kindergarten readiness rates are between 73% and 78%. So we know it's working, and we know it has an impact. Our goal is to really make sure, how do we keep it up, and how do we expand that accessibility for more families. So that is my Executive Director's report.
Any questions? Okay. We'll next move to our strategic plan update with Ann Maxfield. Ann, we're grateful to have you back. I don't know, it's been about a year or so, a little less maybe. But obviously we've had a lot of change. We have 3 or 4 new board members, new officers, and excited to get to revisit our strategic plan with you and talk through some higher level issues that we want to focus on.
Well, I want to thank everybody for having me here. I'm going to head up here because even though I'm the youngest of 6 and I can project my voice, the woman in the very back may not be able to hear. I know you. That's Vanessa Freitag. And I don't even have my readers on. So I think I'm going to, as much as I'm not a podium girl, can you? After,
Yep, we got a couple of things we can do for you.
is this, oh.
First, let's do this, so you're a little bit more comfortable.
Oh, look at
I
that.
like
Oh, look at that.
Isn't
Look
it
at
magical?
this.
Is that better?
While Ann is setting up, whatever her and Hector are doing, I just want to, everybody has a copy of this on their table as well. We had a really great spread in Parent Magazine that puts our Preschool Promise advertisement directly across from content on choosing and selecting the best preschools. So we were really lucky this year, and also thanks to the hard work of Laura Carr for making this placement happen. So.
All right, thank you very much. Again, my name is Ann Maxfield. I pretty much know everybody. I know Tara, I know Marcia, I got your name. I called her Marcia for like a year and a half. She probably wanted to call me Jan Brady because, you know, Marcia. I'm so glad to be here. And let me tell you what really excites me is when I was listening to Miss Jackson's report, and especially this open enrollment postcard, I had my strategic planning hat on, and I'm thinking, yes, all of this is aligned with the strategic plan. So I'm hoping you're all checking off some boxes here and there. So I think this is wonderful. And the preschool reader. All of that will drive your enrollment up. All of that will drive awareness to Cincinnati Preschool Promise. So I am delighted to be here. Thank you. So what I want to do now is just set the table a little bit. I have until 5:25, correct? I won't take an hour. So what I want to do is I want to set the table. We first got together in August of 2021. So this was about as the pandemic, people were starting to get vaccinated, but everybody wasn't fully vaccinated. So we had a retreat for Cincinnati Preschool Promise, and the late Dr. Odell Owens pulled everybody together, and we had a marvelous, probably 6 hours, where we talked a lot about governance and operations and how to support your executive director. And that then was a wonderful way to jump off to strategic planning. So I came back in the spring of 2022, and we spent the day together. We looked at data, we interviewed your key stakeholders, we interviewed the board and key staff, and we took all of that data, sliced and diced it, and then we put together your big, I call them your BHAGs, your big, hairy, audacious goals. And so you have 3 of those goals in your plan, and then we align the SMARTY objectives to each of those goals. So does everybody remember what SMARTY means for SMARTY objectives? Because it's not like I have gold stars up here, but I thought I would ask. SMARTY is specific, it is measurable, it is attainable, it is time sensitive, and by that usually it is deadline driven. It is relevant, it's inclusive, and it's equitable. So I was so impressed with the Board of Managers because you all really stayed focused to make sure that these SMARTY objectives aligned with these great big goals. So congratulations on that. So fast forward to today. And here's the beautiful thing about being Board of Managers. I know, and you know, that we all want the best outcomes for these cute little children between the ages of 3 and 5. And that's why we're here, and that is why we're driving strategic planning. So as you think about me being here, this is your 1-year checkup. So what I do is if clients want me to come back to do a checkup, only this is not invasive like going to a regular doctor, we look at the plan, we figure out, okay, what's working, what needs to be adjusted, and then we talk about those adjustments. So what we're going to do today is we're going to go through goal 1, goal 2, goal 3. We're going to look at the metrics and see if that still makes sense today. And we're also going to look at some deadlines to make sure that still makes sense today. So that is what we are going to do today. Do you have any questions before I start? Not I, we start. Anybody? All right. So if you want to, as you look at, let's look at goal 1. And as you can see up there on the paper, and I want to go back to, actually I have to compliment you all because the goals that you all put together, it took a few hours to do this, and it was a good few hours, but look at those goals, how robust they are. They're 60,000 feet up, and they're excellent. The first goal is every family has a successful preschool experience. Everything that Shara was doing in her report was all around that preschool experience. And whether it's enrollment, whether or not it's the Promise Reader program or whatever it is. So let's look at the first objective. Does it still make sense to increase enrollment by 20% by the next program year? So let's talk about that. Some of your board managers, what are you all thinking? Does that still make sense today? Is it doable? Or is it too aspirational?
We've kind of discussed a few times within the executive committee and at the board that
Wonderful.
we need to revise that goal.
Okay.
It was a good goal to set, but for a variety of reasons not become realistic.
All right, so as you're looking at the metric 20%, I would think you're going to reduce it, correct?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So let's talk about this.
Yes.
What makes sense today? So Ms. Alsop?
I'm putting 10% on the table.
Okay, so we have 10%, and we're looking at the first SMARTY objective, which is increase enrollment by 10% by the next program year. How does that feel to everybody?
I need a
Marcia.
refresher.
Okay.
So we said by the next program year, we're talking about, is this year over year till we get to 2025? Or is this like, we hit it and hallelujah and we're done?
Can I jump in?
You may.
You may.
Oh, we're never gonna hit it. I just will call your attention to the information in the package on page 19 and 20, right? So at our last board meeting and at our December board meeting, we talked about how we may be able to calculate these enrollment goals and walk through this process and arrived at maybe a strategy that we would consider, not saying how do we increase our enrollment goal by the end of the program year, but instead rephrasing that to look at what the overall reach of the preschool promise may be. And if you look at pages 19 and 20, That is a different way that we calculate our enrollment goal. So rather than get on a fixed number, because we know, because it is a number shared between community providers and CPS classrooms, it's very difficult to predict. Because we know ACS data, our population growth and wane is very different, it's always difficult to predict. If you will recall, we talked about the numbers that we had originally from the RAND report and birth rates were almost 1,000 preschoolers off, right? So rather than focus on a fixed number, can we say, looking at our trajectory, what percentage of the eligible preschool population is the Cincinnati Preschool Promise serving? So if you look at the chart on the bottom of page 20, what it specifically says is we started in our first years with serving we'll say 20% of the eligible population. Over the years, we've grown to 30% of the eligible population. That is not community providers alone. That's a mix of CPS and community providers. What I would like to suggest is that our goal, our stretch goal that we set is reaching 35% of the eligible population by 2025 and the end of our strategic plan. Each year, the metric that we measure that about will be calculated to know that the community provider side will be someplace between 43% and 54%, because that historically is the portion that we've had of that number. I would then come with that calculated number of the population of what that is when I present to you our goals and objectives and metrics at our November and December meeting and saying this is what it is, right? So that allows us, in the language that we usually talk about in promoting our impact and comparable to what the preschool initiatives do, to say what is our reach? What are the percentage of the eligible population are we actually helping and having an impact? What we would like to get to is similar to what Dayton Preschool Promise does, Cuyahoga County does, others do, to talk about our overall reach. Because when we just talk about who we provide tuition assistance to, it seems very transactional. And we know that the preschoolers who attend tuition assistance provider sites benefit from that. We know those are in quality improvement benefit from that. So our goal would be to get an overall number of all of the preschoolers that are impacted by this preschool expansion dollar to truly show our reach. Until we were able to do that, we'd like to go at this, reaching 35% of the eligible population. What I will tell you as of this morning, the Dayton Preschool Promises number of their overall big picture reach number is 67%. That's exciting to me, right? We don't even know what our number is because we haven't collected the data in that way. Part of the new things that we'll be doing for this tuition assistant year as we get smarter about that is asking that all of our preschool providers complete an application for every student. Not just those that they think are eligible for tuition assistance, that all of our quality improvement providers share with us how many students that they're serving, so that we can tell our truth. So other Ohio preschool initiatives comparable to us, if we focus solely on tuition assistance, around 28%, 24%. So we're not too far off the mark. So I'm always a little ambitious. We're at 30, we're coming out of the pandemic. I would like to see over the next 2 years how we get to 30.
So I have a point of clarity then about objective 1 and 2, based on what Shar said. I think we need to reframe both of those objectives. That's my point of view after hearing, the realities that we're working with, and we need to reframe both objective 1 and 2 into a single objective. I think that really speaks to our ability to extend our reach in a practical way.
So what we have now, well, first of all, kudos for citing best practices. I've been in the nonprofit space for over 25 years, and I am a big fan of best practices, and I am a big fan of looking at other markets who are doing the exact same thing that you are and figure out where you can learn. What we have on the table right now is merging objective 1 and 2 into one objective, and the language is somewhat, and Shara, please correct me if I'm wrong, 35% of eligible population by 2025. Is that correct?
Yes, and there's a sample, metric is not in there, but a sample of what that objective could be at the bottom of page 19. For objective number 1, to increasing enrollment to reach 30%, or actually 35% of the eligible preschoolers by 2025.
Wait, you,
I'm here
Mine-
for it.
mine makes me hold it.
Okay, I'll just hold it. I do think the move to reach is where we really need to go, and as much as possible, when we can get the data moving to overall reach as well. I understand the difficulties with it, because even the problem with the 35% is that as other funding sources become available, which is something we're advocating for and working towards and want to happen, our number goes down. And so we have to continuously remind people of that, and that's a really hard metric to have when you have to add all these qualifiers to it all the time. Oh, we aren't up to 35 because the state of Ohio changed their funding, and now our last dollar in, we lost 200 students because of that. That's a good thing, yet against our objective and hard. Objective 2, if I recall, this is less about who we're serving in terms of enrollment and reach, and more about of those who are enrolled and we're reaching, are they attending consistently? So I think that this one, if I remember back to when we said it, was supposed to be about getting that increased consistent attendance from those who are already in the reach. So I'm okay if we combine them, but they do still feel like two different things, and I always think of objectives, coming out of objectives, you said action plans, and I think your action plans against your reach objective and your action plans against your attendance objective are likely different and two separate activity sets.
thank you, Christine. Shar, do you have, or Micah, do you have a reaction about the merging of the two, or do you believe it should still be separated? What are your thoughts, and what are other people's thoughts?
I will say that if it's, I can see both sides of this, right? Because if we decide to merge these as objectives, what we would do is put the attendance goal as one of our key initiatives in our metrics, because we are ready and committed to that attendance goal, and the recommendation is going to be of those that we discussed at the January meeting and looked at for the pilot project to see how we increase attendance by 1 day a month. By 1 day a month, right? And it is possible for us to do that pilot initiative as part of our work plans and our metrics that we do on the dashboard without it being a formal part of our strategic plan objectives, right? Because as you know, there are a lot of initiatives behind this. And the only reason that I give a little bit of pause to that is if you remember where our numbers are, when you look at us as a pool of community providers, overall, the goal was to try to get to 90%, we were at 86%. So we don't have a lot of room to grow, right? And we don't have a lot of room to say we're gonna knock this attendance out of the park, because for us, the challenge is very specific, right? We don't know if it's families that were struggling in that 2-year window. We don't know if it was transportation issues that we'll be able to address. So having it as a subset to our overall successful preschool experience seems to me to feel better than a stated out objective as part of our strategic plan. Doesn't mean we won't have a metric. Doesn't mean we won't measure it.
Right.
But it is so hard, as Christine said, for me to explain to you attendance in a soundbite. Because also, our market is very different than the CPS market in that each provider sets their own schedule. So that when we have to look at number of open and closed days, it's not equal across the market, right? Some people are closed for all of summer months. Some people are closed for all of December. All of those nuances make it very challenging for us to find a convenient strategic goal metric. So I am in agreement with Ms. Alsop and in agreement with Christine as well.
So based on and when I do strategic planning, and those of you who know me, I always go back to the person in charge, and that would be you. You're the expert. I am not. It sounds to me like we may have consensus, and Micah, you may need to do a formal vote with this, but we have consensus that we're going to remove objective 2. It'll still be taken care of, but it just won't be focused in the plan, and we're going to adjust metric number 1 to focus on a metric of 35%, and we may be rewording it a little bit differently. Is that correct?
Is there anyone not comfortable with that? Has objections to that they want to share?
I don't have an objection, but because I'm newer to the board, how was the 20% determined originally? Because it's a jump, and I'm just looking at this in terms of the trend. 35, 35 seems reasonable, just some, a little back.
It was me, Christy. We had a strategic planning process, and they said, let's guess at a number because we don't know a number. And so I looked at the trends and the increase that we had done year over year, and we had some fantastic years where we went and had 20%, 23%. So I was like, oh, we can keep doing this. That table of people right back there that work for the preschool promise, when I got back to the office, said absolutely not. 20% is a little too ambitious. We can't guarantee we can make that work. Our innovations team said, looking at the population data, you can't go with a hard number like that because of the changes in the ACS data and what we're seeing. It's just not going to work. So it was me. And the caveat was, at the time, if you remember when we were charting, I said, I think this is it, but I'm not really sure. And the board said, go with it. Go with it. We will change it later.
And Christy, just so you know, the board was correct in supporting their executive director with this. That was a good question, and I do recall that conversation, and we did go with it, which is why we're here now on our annual checkup. It's not working, and so this is why we're adjusting it.
And I'm all about goals, so I can see that. Okay, thank you, that's helpful.
So Micah, do you have enough to form or do you need an official vote?
I feel like let's kind of go through on consensus and then maybe we'll take a vote at the end on.
Perfect.
But everyone generally feels pretty good about those changes. No other questions or issues? Okay.
All right, going back to goal 1, let's look at objective number 3, and let's look and see if that date needs to be changed, and that is develop a plan by this June 30th, that ensures the special needs of every child are met. Does that date need to be, is that checked off the box, or do we need to extend that date out a little bit?
I am comfortable with that date, and on our dashboard, we're increasing our number of partners that are assisting us with doing that. Some of that is also a data pull that we have to get, so it is in the works, but I think with our partners and what I shared with the new ECEQI project that Children's is initiating, as well as the new ODJFS Mental Health Alliance and access that they have available for that as well as supportive services, I feel like we're on track to share.
Perfect. Any questions before I move on to Smarty objective number 4? All right, number 4, provide support and opportunities for parent education. How are we doing with that? That's what, I think you all are kind of crushing that. I mean, it's just my observation, but so that sounds like that's a go. Perfect. All right, that completes goal number 1, and now let's pivot to goal number 2. High quality drives all preschool endeavors. And I remember when we were working on this big audacious BHAG goal, and Christine, correct me if I'm wrong, and Terry, this alone took us about 45 minutes to an hour. But it was nailed, and that's, when you look at early childhood education, it's always about high quality, it's 5-star, it's all of those pieces that make early child education what it is. So the objective number 1 is fund and put into place teacher recruitment and retention programs by this June. Does that still make sense for this June, or should that be pushed out? What do you all think?
I think it's happening, right? So
Okay.
I think that it's a continuous evolution
Okay.
of what the programs are, and so my question would be, this isn't a one and done, right? So should that date be continuous, or needs to be the end of the program?
Actually, I was going to put, do you want to put that as ongoing?
Yeah, as our most critical need that we see workforce, I think ongoing is something that we need to do.
So what we're recommending is to remove the date, and that is the T on the SMART-T objective, remove the date, replace it with the word ongoing. What that signifies to the Board of Managers, staff, and the community is that this is something that is in continual operation and it's not going away. Terrific, thank you. So that, who's capturing notes? Oh, okay, good. Ongoing, thank you, Tanya.
Is everyone good with that change to ongoing?
Perfect sense.
Okay. Objective 2, create a plan to support programs that operate outside traditional hours by June 30 of next year. And I was reading some things, so how is that one progressing, and does that date still make sense? Shara?
We have made no progress, and nor have we done any initiatives on that.
I love honesty.
Yeah, so 2024, end of 2023, we may start to look at that.
Okay.
I know that some shifts have happened in terms of funding availability for outside of normal school hours with ODJFS, so we really would be looking at that and building up our partners who actually provide that service to get some less learning. So I'm comfortable with the 2024 date, but no initiatives currently are appearing on our dashboard or our work plan related to that.
Well, and that's okay, because you still have a year to do it. That's why I love SMART-T objectives, you still have a year. Okay, wonderful, so that date
Does
still.
the extended learning sessions kind of count toward that?
Well, I can make it count if you think it should, but I think when we were looking at this, what we really considered is the community provider setting of the before school and after school outside of that 6.75 hours, because that's the reality of the way a community provider operates. But we'll kind of massage it a little bit and see what we may be able to get into there and talk about some progress or some traction on that, because we have been pulling providers to really say, what does your day really look like? Because we know that 6.75 hours is very limited to you.
All right. Objective number 3, develop a community partnership plan to support students and families by 6/30/2025. You've got 2 years to do that. My assumption is you're good to go. All right. Any questions around goal number 2 before we pivot to goal number 3?
Especially for some of the newer board members, maybe objective 3, do you want to just remind the board sort of where we were going with that?
Absolutely. So in terms of developing a community partnership plan, really recognizing Cincinnati Preschool Promises place in the early childhood education ecosystem, and that we don't necessarily need to do everything that supports that kindergarten readiness, but we need to partner better and provide access for those who are part of the CPP network. So that could be anything from our partnership with the Museum Center, who is initiating a new literacy initiative, offering free professional development to our providers, to our partners at 4C, who offer a very intensive parent education series. We don't have to build that. How do we promote it and advertise it? So the rec centers, who we know provide summer camps, before and after school learning opportunities, really understanding the rich resources that are in this community that are helping us drive kindergarten readiness and how we can be better partners in connecting individuals to that. And really, landscape analysis and a plan of what that looks like, because people are approaching us on a regular basis to say, how can we network? How can we get with the population? So I think it is also a way for us to say, how are we leveraging the taxpayer investment with the other resources that are here in the community? So those are just some examples, and while you'll see kind of our 13% traction, and in our executive director report, who in the community that we're partnering with. Good example is in this building right here, right, with Success by 6 and the services that they offer. African American Chamber and the work that they do to help us with our Smart Start backpacks. Peanut Butter and Jam, that was kind of operating on their own with a very minor infusion with us, they were able to leverage it to serve 10 more preschools. So how do we build those community partnerships? Because we have an opportunity as Preschool Promise to do that a small business or a nonprofit as an individual community preschool site may not be able to coordinate.
Thank you for the question, Christine. Anything else with goal number 2 before we pivot to goal number 3? All right, goal number 3, and I remember when we were developing this as well, there's no margin, no mission. And that's what I always say to my clients. And so even though that you have a different funding stream, and it's from the tax levy, but you still always need to be cognizant of that financial sustainability. So this is meet changing needs through maximum financial sustainability. So as you look at objective number, pardon?
Financial flexibility. You said sustainability, financial flexibility.
Thank you, financial flexibility. It would help if I put my glasses on and look down here at my paper instead of doing it halfway. So the first piece is execute the master agreement that promotes our critical mission by June 30th of last year. So as we all know, there's been some leadership changes at Cincinnati Public Schools. And whenever you have leadership transition, you have challenges that come up with this. When a new leader comes in, they have their marching orders, they know what they're supposed to do. So let's take a look at that. And I believe that has not happened, is that correct?
That's right, and this may be another one to replace with ongoing also. I mean, it'll come to an end date, but I'm hesitant to put a date toward it. We're making progress, we're working on it. I think we're making good progress pretty recently too, but I don't know that we're gonna do ourselves any favors picking a date with, this takes a lot of folks to get together and some beyond our control, so I think replacing that with ongoing until we get it done is maybe the best way to go about it.
So let me, I totally agree. I love the ongoing piece. That also makes sense in that everybody needs some time with this. So is everybody in favor of removing that date and then putting the parenthetical reference of ongoing? So that also gives the board managers and the staff flexibility to keep working on it, and then when the time is right, the stars are aligned and everything's ready to go, then the execution can happen with that plan. Is everybody comfortable with that?
I have a,
Deborah?
can you hear me?
Yes.
I have a question about ongoing with this particular one versus June 30th, 2025, which is the period of the strategic planning process. And correct me if I'm wrong, a levy will probably be put on in 2024 to include the preschool promise. So I'm not debating Micah, but, ongoing versus through the time of the strategic plan, which is 2025.
So if did everyone hear Deborah also? She's recommending that another option to be considered would be June 30th, 2025, and Marcia.
I think, this is me personally, I think you're right. I don't want to put that as the goal because I don't want it to look like that's what we're working toward. I think our hope is it's a lot sooner than that. But certainly, if we don't have, everything on this is kind of by that timeline. It's a 5-year plan that will be done, but I'm very hesitant to put a date towards something like this that isn't entirely in our control.
Marcia, do you want to press yeah, there you go, now talking to the mic, there you go.
So I agree we need to take that date off, and I agree that I don't have a specific date to offer. And it probably would break the rule and if we had no date, right?
It would.
But it's technically an objective and not a goal.
It is definitely an objective, under the broad goal of financial flexibility, correct?
So would it be breaking the rule if we did not have a date and we just put a period after the word mission? Because, ongoing, to be honest, ongoing doesn't feel right, because it feels like something is just, keeps going with no end.
So you could do that because it's basically implicit that everything's going to be finished by June 30th of 2025, because that's when this strategic plan ends. So you've a couple others that you don't have a date. So if you're looking at that, I'm going to look to Micah and
I think it's a great idea.
Well, my work is
Char, what are you thinking?
done. I'm good with.
You go with that?
I don't understand the point, and help me with that. Execute the master agreement that promotes our critical mission, just period.
Right. Removing the date and also not putting ongoing.
I think the concern was from a negotiation standpoint, if we put 2025, that also releases any kind of urgency.
Exactly.
Well,
We can't, Shara and Micah can't even go and say like, my strategic plan says I gotta get this done.
yeah, but the elephant in the room is that we have not made progress on renegotiating the master agreement. So, you know, I think there's a point of, if you will, possibility that we can make a lot of progress, but I don't want there to be, you know, avoiding the real issue. We haven't made progress, we need to get it done, and we need to get it done as of yesterday. So that's my position.
What if we were to
This
change
is a
it?
hot button for me.
What if we were to change it to as soon as possible?
Again, this is a 3-year plan. It's implicit that it will be finished before June 30th of 2025. If there's the sense of urgency, then you can take that June 30th, 2022, change it into an aspirational date, but you want this to be realistic. It may be best to just remove the date completely.
So, and I hear you, Ms. Alsop, I'm trying to, I don't
Be
think.
nice.
I guess by not having a date there, and as Ann said, it's kind of implicit that all of this will be done by 2025. I don't think that gives the message that, I don't think it says one way or the other about the progress. It just says, we're gonna get it done. It's no different than a couple of, that other one that doesn't have a date. Because the frustration is you put a date, or even if you said as soon as possible, it's like, well, what does that mean? And you know, you invite all these conversations in there, so just put it out there. As we're gonna get this done. Yeah, go ahead.
Can I ask the question another way, maybe? Because I share the concern, I mean, we're technically operating outside of a master agreement right now. So what could the board of managers do, if anything, in our strategic plan to help that process along?
Terry, it's
Could we have something that says on or before the levy, the election, but we need to press this, like Christine said, and Debbie is alluding to. We have to get this done. We've waited long enough. We've had our meetings. We've had all of our cross-outs. We've submitted what we're supposed to submit. So we've done our part. So right now, we're waiting. We're playing this waiting game, and I don't think that is fair. I think we should have something that gives us an end date.
You can use the words on or before, is correct.
Okay.
Just like ongoing is correct, just like having a hard date is correct.
not to trivialize what we're doing here, but just kind of for some perspective, I don't believe that the reason we don't have an agreement right now has anything to do with what our strategic plan says or what date we put on it. I think we're kind of going in a circle right now because we're frustrated about something that I don't really think what we put here will have any bearing on, or what we have here has had any bearing on. So I think I'd like to kind of resolve this, but with the understanding everyone's frustrated. We are working to make some progress. Deb, I disagree a little bit with your comment that we've made no progress. I think in the last couple weeks, maybe we're starting to make a little progress, and maybe we'll be able to get an update on that. Let's not kind of mistake what we put here as on our thing for why we do or don't have a deal. I don't think that's how we're gonna apply pressure or get a deal done. So let's not go around on this 5 more rounds.
I agree with you. At this point, we still have on the table, do we just want to end that mission period?
Mission period.
I think, from an outsider looking in as your consultant, I think that's the best move.
Period.
Yeah, period.
Anyone oppose that? All right, let's move forward with that.
And this was a good discussion. So we have to have the discussion to reach what it is, and you've made the right decision with that. So thank you for that discussion. The next one is objective 2, which is develop a joint board-approved process for strategic implementation by 9/20/22. So do you want to use the same logic that you used for objective 1 and just remove that date, develop a joint implementation period? Because that's the next logical step after the signature comes on, after it's agreed to. Does that make sense? Shara, how do you feel about that?
I feel good about that, given that we were talking about erasing matrix on my very first day. My very first board meeting, right? So I think it's a work in process, and I think by not putting that date, as Mike said, I don't think it influences anything, but I think it really makes it appear, and what the truth is, we are interested in the partnership, and that requires sometimes longer and more challenging discussions and working through something that doesn't necessarily fit in our box. That's what good partners do.
And that's okay. All right.
Everyone agree with that? Just get rid of the date? Perfect.
And the last objective for the entire strategic plan is develop a landscape assessment of funding sources by 6/30 of this year.
So that one's a little tough for me, right?
Excuse me, I did see that, yeah.
It's a little tough for me, because part of us doing a landscape assessment of funding has us leaning on some of our other partners, like in this building, on United Way, to talk about what those funding sources are. Looking at the changing funding sources that are now coming with ODJFS, and what may come from the Governor's new Office of Children. And recognizing the role that our CCR&R plays in looking at those funding sources as well. What I don't want to do is cannibalize or compete with anyone else, right? So the progress that we've made in terms of that fundraising assessment is that we clearly have made some partners with Ignite Philanthropy that are going to help us have a policy clean, giving policy, gift policy around the work that we're doing to honor and recognize Dr. Owens. So that's some progress that we've made. Strategic meetings with the United Way and 4C for Children so that we can understand our place to fill the gap, right? And working with our national partners when opportunities arise, from the Children's Funding Project to the ECE work group out of New York, to talk about if there's national funding here, how do we look at that as a partner, not necessarily alone. So I will be able to provide some updates on where we stand and where it is. I wouldn't say it is a comprehensive plan of how we do development and fundraising.
So you brought up a good point, go right ahead.
I don't think that's what the objective is. I think the objective is what you just rolled through.
Yeah. And so it's,
You are making an assessment, not a development plan or a fundraising plan. You are giving us the landscape within which we must work.
so yeah, I can do that. Tony, thank you, Tony. I can do that. You know.
Just so you know, I was thinking of that, but I was, thank you, Tony.
Okay, so now I accept that you all think I'm an overachiever. You're gonna be right.
And it's good, it's always good to have your CEO be an overachiever, that's a good thing. But I'm with Tony on this, because this is just the assessment, this is just a landscape assessment. This isn't fundraising, this is looking at, all within financial flexibility, because you will make strategic decisions on funding around that landscape assessment.
And there's some new opportunities that we know are rising and meetings that we're having with the city and their initiatives and commitments to early childhood education. As you all saw in our update, joint grant funding opportunities that we have, again, for federal funding that we're doing with United Way. So, yeah, I can give you one.
So let me ask you this. Far be it for me to suggest you change a SMART objective, especially since I was here for when it was formed a year ago. But would it make better sense to add a word in there that says develop a landscape assessment of funding sources and issue a report by such and such, or just keep it as is?
Keep it as is, because
Okay.
then report, I start, yeah, no.
Got it. So with the date, you're already doing it. Can we keep the date as is?
Yes, and it
Perfect.
will be reported regularly and.
This means that we can check a box, people. We can check a box. Wonderful. Tony, thank you for that. Marcia, you're up.
This is up. So my question about that one, I was here too, and so I probably shouldn't have a question, but I do. So once June 30th happens and you have an assessment of the landscape, would this not be something that's kind of ongoing from that point? I mean, you're assessing the landscape now, but knowing that things are gonna change, so beyond this objective, there's an ongoing assessment or periodic assessment of that landscape. Am I thinking about it correctly?
You are, and
Okay.
what I would anticipate seeing is when we then start talking about our goals and work plans and our metrics, you will see a specific metric or goal for the calendar year related to funding sources or philanthropy or fundraising. Right, so right now, the way that that goal looks because of that assessment is to make sure that we have a clear giving policy and we have a way of acknowledging the processing funds that are received in honor and memory of Dr. Owens. So that's how it materializes into an objective. So we can leave it here through 2023. The ongoing way that that gets played out is in our action plans that I present to you.
If I recall the conversation, we sort of said we need two things to happen before we can even decide where we want to go with alternative financing. And one was for the master plan to be finalized. The other one was for the landscape assessment to be done, so that we had a good idea of what else is out there and what is that spot that might make sense for us to play in or not play in. But without those two things, we sort of couldn't make then that what should we be doing. So I would imagine that that might move into sort of a next year goal or part of this overall goal is to then come up with a plan.
Because if you recall too, at the time when we were making this and discussing it, we all still thought universal preschool was coming.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember the conversation, yes. And when I think about the landscape assessment, this also, and this is nonprofit speak right now, this is also what we call foundational tools. So it is all those tools that Shara and her team keep in their toolbox to look at this, such as developing gift acceptance policies around it. That's a foundational tool so that they have that operations piece. All right, now before I go to topic number 2, Micah, do you want to, first of all, okay, well, I'm gonna let you do you, and then you can pivot back to me and I'll do me.
Perfect. Is there a motion to adopt the plan as revised by the consensus revisions today?
So moved.
Tony, is there a second?
Second.
Christie, second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, we've adopted it. Thanks.
Excellent, nice job, team. I have to tell you, I'm very impressed. This shows me, as a member of the public, even though I live in northern Kentucky, that you all really are taking strategic planning seriously. So there's no putting a plan up on a shelf and, as they say in the nonprofit world, dusting it off once a year. You're actually living and breathing your plan, and it's the staff that's bringing the plan to life through all of these actions. So I commend all of you. If you go back to the agenda, we are now on topic number 2, and that is future check-ins. So what we'll do is next spring, I'll get a call from Shara, although she knows she can call me anytime, even before then, and chat. I'll come back and we're going to do this exact same thing as I do with a lot of my clients. Look and see what's worked, what do we need to change, what metrics no longer make sense, do we need to push dates out. So I'll come back in 2024 and then again at the end of your plan. And what happens then is your plan, quote unquote, expires, if you will, on June 30th of 2025. So if the Board of Managers then is in agreement with your executive director, CEO, Shara Fisher-Jackson, then we can look at planning for a new, fresh plan to start on July 1st of 2025. So we'll want to back that out about 6 months. We're also going to, based on what I'm seeing now and based on my thoughts, expand that data piece out. We did key stakeholder interviews 2 years ago, and we also interviewed the board and key staff. I think it's time maybe to do some additional data collection, specifically with several targets, but we can talk about that later. I want to thank you for everything that you're doing for Greater Cincinnati kids. I grew up in my mother was a Montessori teacher, and she was a teacher. She would have been 98 right now, so she was doing Montessori and early childhood education before it was even a thing, and this is back in the 50s and 60s. So I love the fact that you are here. I love the fact that you are working this plan. Again, this is proof that the staff is taking this seriously under the leadership of Shara Fisher-Jackson. So just know, I appreciate everything you're doing, and I will turn the meeting over to whoever the next person is on the agenda. Who is that person?
I think it's me for the moment.
Okay.
And thank you for your help.
It's all about Micah now. He's going to do him again.
Yeah, thank you for your help. This was really
you're
helpful in
welcome.
going through and helping us to organize our thoughts, and we really appreciate it. And we'll look forward to the next checkup as well. We're going to move into committee reports, but actually first, before we go to governance, Jake, would you mind sharing a minute of master agreement updates and where we are? I want to make sure everyone has the fullest information given that conversation we just had.
Sure, good afternoon. For the new board members, my name is Jacob Purcell. I'm Cincinnati Preschool Promises outside general counsel. I'll give you a little bit of context and background about how we got to where we're at and frankly where we're at. A little over a year ago, this board created a master agreement committee. That committee was charged with reviewing the master agreement and determining what worked well and what did not work well. That committee had a deadline of June of 2022, which I believe was the impetus of that goal that you just saw. The reason for that goal was that the master agreement was set to expire in June of 2022. Obviously, that date has since passed. At the time we attempted to initiate an extension of the master agreement, which I believe United Way signed, Cincinnati Public Schools agreed to it in principle. I think I can say that, although we never got a signature back from them. A little over a year ago, after multiple meetings with the Master Agreement Committee, we circulated a red line draft to Cincinnati Public Schools. We also circulated a memorandum that summarized some of the asks, if you will, in that draft to the board as a whole. Obviously, Cincinnati Public Schools has had their hands full over the last year with multiple different issues. And they have finally gotten to a place now where they feel that they are able to pay the attention that this deserves and to respond to us in a substantive way. About a week ago, I spoke with Cincinnati Public Schools General Counsel Dan Hoyne. We had a very productive conversation. It was clear that they had read through the asks, considered the asks. I won't go over specific deal points or what was discussed in a public meeting, although I'm more than happy to talk with anybody outside of this about kind of the summary of those conversations. But the Cliff Notes version of it was that they are paying attention to this, they are taking it seriously, and frankly, I think that the result of these conversations in short order will be a revised version of the master agreement that gives us a lot of the flexibility that we were searching for, and will give us a lot of the things that we are asking for. I'm very optimistic about it. Happy to answer any questions generally about the process, about the timing to the extent that I can. I'll get my crystal ball out if needed, or frankly, anything else. Any questions?
And I'll just echo that in recent conversations I've had with Ben Lindy, the chair of CPS board, he's committed to that they're really ready to work through and get back to us with responses and try to work on getting the deal done.
Do you get a sense that this will be a CPP board to CPS board discussion as opposed to, and no disrespect intended, superintendent, Shara discussion, Jay Purcell, Dan Hoyning discussion, because I have some concerns that it be board to board.
You have concerns with it being board to board?
That it needs to be board
That
to
it needs to
board.
be. I think that most of the legwork would happen in small working committees for various reasons. One is practicality, and that's probably the biggest reason. So when we deal with a document that is, let's call it 30 pages, redlining that document and circulating it to 15 individuals here and then multiple individuals on the CPS board it can become so cumbersome of a process that it doesn't eat a result. That doesn't mean that it won't be subject to board approval.
I think I might not be clear. We appointed a committee of board members to represent CPP. I think the US probably has done the same thing. So what I was saying, will, whatever the redlining back and forth ultimately end up in a board to board, the representatives who are designated from each side to make those discussions happen. And without trying to throw anybody under the bus, we can get into all kinds of, further issues that this staff person or that staff person is busy, it's not a priority, etc. So that's my concern.
I'll hop in here and say, on our end, certainly we're going to make sure the committee we have together is informed of discussions as we're going back and forth, and part of those discussions, ultimately, whatever we get to as a final product will require full board approval. So I can't really speak for how CPS intends to go about it, but on our end, that is how we will go about it. Any other questions? All right, Deb, we'll move to you for the governance committee report.
Okay, let's continue the bus trip. On behalf of the Cincinnati Preschool Governance Committee, I submit for approval the nominations as follows to serve on the Cincinnati Preschool Promise Board of Managers. First, Ross Meyer, and we have his bio and the resolution from Cincinnati Public Board of Education. Ross is currently Vice President of Strategy for Interact for Health, and is being recommended for the class of 2023 to complete the term of the late Dr. Odell Owens. Interact for Health is an organization committed to improve health equity in Greater Cincinnati. Mr. Meyer previously served as the interim president of the United Way of Greater Cincinnati. He led this organization through a critical period of significant change. During COVID-19, Ross led the Connect Our Students initiative to provide free home broadband to Cincinnati public students. Ross is a native Cincinnatian and lives in Oakley with his wife, Emile, and their 3 sons. It has been my honor to work with Ross in both of my careers, one with the United Way of Greater Cincinnati and the other with Families For. The CPP Board of Managers will be enhanced by his ability to make good trouble. And I like good trouble. The next nominee is Nikita Anderson. And Nikita is a current member of Promise Board's Board of Directors. She has served on that board for about 3 years. She also serves on the Avondale Community Council, and she is finishing her work with Cohere, which is an agency committed to community building and change. She is also involved with voter education. She is the proud mother of 5 children. 2 of her children attended Preschool Promise Community Provider Centers. She said in our conversation this morning that if it had not been for the Preschool Promise, 2 of her children would not have been able to have the benefit of quality preschool education. She is a Bengals fan all the way, carry the flag. And Nikita and I, like I said, had a brief moment with each other, and we ended up at the same table this evening. The Cincinnati Preschool Promise will benefit from her commitment to positive educational change for our children. So I present those two names for approval by the Cincinnati Preschool Promise Board.
Nikita, do you want to introduce yourself or add anything more?
Hi, I'm Nikki. I'm Nikita Anderson. Hi, everyone.
And I did fail to say that Ms. Anderson will complete the class of 2024 term of Crystal Perkins from Promise Board.
So let's go one at a time, starting with Ross Meyer's election. Is there a motion to approve that?
I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, Ross is approved. Next, we'll do the election of Nikita to replace the term of Crystal Perkins. Is there a motion to approve that election?
I so move. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, Nikita, welcome to the team. We're excited to have you here.
Hey, Deborah, in the Cincinnati Public School resolution, they mentioned Ross Meyer, but also Pamela Bowers.
Okay, you're getting ahead of yourself here. Let me just say this. Pamela will be joining the board upon the official resignation of Christine Fisher. So they were being very efficient. And her name will be presented at our May meeting for approval by the Cincinnati Preschool Promise Board. And I do want to say that neither Ross nor Pam was able to be here today. So that was the kind of technicality. And
Can we get to vote on Christine's resignation?
We haven't gotten it yet.
She has, and I was very sad to read it. Deb did a really nice job of pushing CPS to make sure we'd have no lag, but we're going to do something to thank Christine for her service next month at her next meeting.
And thank you for being such a good reader, Tony. You should be a preschool promise reader.
I have met with both Pam and Ross, and they're both very excited about joining us for the board, and we do have a board orientation scheduled at the end of our next governance committee meeting. And so just a reminder that we're always pair our new board members with our experienced board members. So if you're interested in pairing with one of our new board members, please let me or Ms. Austin know, because we want to make those assignments at that orientation. And so Ross has also promised, because he is doing a one-on-one trip with his son to Disney World for spring break, to come back with some preschool-worthy swag for us. So just have to make sure, as a new peer accountability, you all check.
Deb, do you have anything else for your report?
No, that completes my report.
Thanks for the work in shepherding these through and making sure our team is as big as we can be with the right folks. Next, we're going to move to the Communications Committee update with Terry England.
Okay, thank you, Micah. The Communications Committee is trying to capitalize on opportunities to raise awareness in early childhood education and the challenges in gaining support through the community. We also discussed some ways that we can ask the community to advocate for us without stepping on the toes of Groundwork Ohio. Yeah, I know that they're doing that work, and our capable leader is looking into how we can further that effort along.
So I do have a quick update on that. We are scheduled, our community newsletter is scheduled to go out within the next week and a half as usual. Our survey question in that newsletter will be to the community: what public policy question in early childhood education is most important to you, with a feature of connecting to Groundwork Ohio, because we did have 7 community providers show up for the Big Voices for Little Children Day. And so as our advocacy partners, Groundwork Ohio as well as the United Way, we want to again make sure that our community of parents and providers know those advocacy resources that are available to them and that are ready to support them. So we are ready to do that with that next newsletter announcement, and Groundwork is pleased to partner with us in that way to spread it.
Awesome. I'm glad to hear that. Thank you. Okay, another thing, yesterday, our billboards went out. So 84 billboards were out, So make sure you're paying attention as you're driving. Don't run to the back of anyone when you see these beautiful children up in the air. But they are positioned around our communities within the CPS footprint. Also, we have some that are going into other communities and out of those communities as they come into the CPS footprint. They are spread all around greater Cincinnati and a little beyond.
Those are the free ones, beyond are the free ones.
Yeah, I did call Char about
Yeah,
that.
those are the free
Why are they out there? She said they were free. Okay, I'll go with that. Okay, also we have in April, we will have bus wraps. You will start to see those around the city on the various metro buses. And we have the RIS book, yearbook that we're in, and there's a QR code inside that book for CPP. And so that when they click on that, it takes them right to our website. They can ask questions, they can sign their children up. There's a lot of information that can go through that QR code. Also, I am asking our board members to contact me if you have any other ideas about how we're going to have our tribute to Dr. Odell Owens. We do have a couple of suggestions. One is a park bench that we will hopefully be putting right outside of Cincinnati Public Schools, Marison Center. Also, we have our giving library, and the library is just not for books. You know, the library, because we don't just read all the time. Reading is essential, yes. You know, but this library would have seeds, it would have tools, it would have things like that that go along with the books or can be independent in the curriculum. So that would help the providers further and extend their curriculum and how they interact with the children as well. Puzzles go in that library as well. So these are things that the providers can keep, not necessarily a lending library. They can keep those with them. So basically, that's all I have at this time, and I thank you.
Thanks for the hard work of you and everyone on the committee. Finance and audit, Tony.
Okay, we have 2 items on the agenda. One item, first item is the audit as submitted. It's in the packet and it was distributed ahead of time. We met with the auditors, the finance committee. The audit is, I guess what we call a clean audit. The financial statements present fairly in all material specs, the financial position from CPP. And the management letter, which again provides a clean report. They do have continuing two suggestions. They suggest we and these suggestions that followed, excuse me for this in and out, but the suggestions follow the suggestions we've seen in the past. One is regarding tracking our QI program, and the other is an alert about cybersecurity. And both suggestions are well taken, but do not present anything that is a red flag or a flaw. So that being said, we present the audit for approval of the board.
Is there a motion to approve the audit?
I move to approve the audit.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, approve the audit.
We did get a question, and there are a couple of questions that don't really go to approving or accepting the audit, but just go to the general process and also our upcoming, the time has come for us to seek proposals for these services going forward. We will, what's it called, the 1099, is that the? 990. The 990 will be issued later in the spring. I think it comes out at the end of May. Is that, I can't remember.
Actually, you went, that's the last day to file is in mid-May.
So that'll come out then and be distributed for everyone. Once that is done, we will put out a request for proposals for these audit services. We have typically used a 5-year time for the proposals. I think for services like that, a 5-year term does make sense. We hope to get a very broad and representative response to that, and we will bring those qualified proposals back to the board so we can select the auditor going forward. So not much more to report other than that's what our plan will be, and we are in the process of preparing that request for proposals. I think if there's anything else specifically to do with the audit and I'm happy to answer any other questions or thoughts, comments, or concerns.
I have a concern, and it's about the request for proposal for the audit. One of the things that CPP has done, we have an equity, diversity, equity, and inclusion policy, and I'm framing this from experience. I think it's very hard to get accounting firms to honor that and respect that. And so I want to be sure in this process that is really looked at and the tires are kicked, not just, that a box is checked on that.
Fair enough, and it clearly is part of our policies, and so we are obligated to do that. So that'll be our charge.
Just a quick question, so when was the 990 come around for the inclusion?
You said in May.
I think it comes in a month or so.
But it'll be available to them before then. We'll get it in early April, send it out for your comments and review, but because it has to be filed by mid-May before the next board meeting, it'll go through the FNAC and be filed in that direction.
Thank you.
Yep.
I also want to make a comment about the equity policy. I think we worked very strategically with Jay for the last round of RFPs to put outline of CPP's equity policy and the requirements in that RFP that we've used for all RFPs. And if you all recall too, the commitment that we made with the approval in December, where you all approved not only changes to the equity policy to be aligned with the changes made in CPS, but also the rubric where we measure how that's being implemented, that if we have any vendor that has a multi-year contract that comes back from you at renewal, along with that contract renewal will also come a statement on how that vendor has complied with our equity policy using the measures on our rubric. So while there are none of our vendors in the room right now, Foresee, K-Spark, Beach Acres, all of those people that we have vending relationships with, we have asked them to make a statement on the equity policy so that when we come back to you to say, we're renewing this contract, this is how the equity policy is being implemented, that the board has that information to try to evaluate that. And if you find that more specificity is needed, we can of course build that into the contract, which is why we have a built-in year-over-year renewal, subject to the approval of the board. So it is a multi-year contract, but all of them are subject to renewal.
Any other questions on the audit?
I had, just a follow-up on the suggestions for improvement. So is that something, I just wanted to get your reaction to that, and then is that gonna be followed up within finance committee or next steps?
So the suggestion about the tracking of the QI spending has been in the process now for almost 3 years. What we have nailed down on that has to be completed, that we budgeted for this fiscal year, is the completion of that with our program eligibility vendor. Right now, we are still in negotiations with Metrics, which was identified as the most qualified candidate for us to do. Part of that RFP had to build out of that QI module so that we would have that going forward, so that we have the ability to crack what we do in QI with the same riches that we track and get a 25-page report for everything that happens with TA. So that, along with new data that we have that kind of tells us our most vulnerable communities, where we should be investing those dollars, meeting with 4C to say where are they investing dollars. So we hope that that build out will allow us more tracking in that way. And with the addition of our QI team that's now fully staffed, with our QI specialists, we hope that we'll be able to do that as well. In terms of the cybersecurity, it's a bit out issue again. I understand the concern of the auditor, but I don't think that the auditor recognizes that most of the things that we do that are highly sensitive data are external vendors for us, right? That is our program eligibility, that is innovations. So we will always consider it at bid time, but also recognizing all of our insurance benefits, everything went up between 30 to 35%. If I can get a good deal, maybe. But we've had very minimal cyber attacks, but as we grow, we'll consider that again and looking at one of the things that we may include depending on cost in our
Okay. Second item on our agenda is to present the draft budget for next year. Again, this was in the packet. Hope you had a chance to look at it. We are not calling for a vote at this time, is that right? So this is really for introduction and also then to discuss any particular items that caught your eye. We will have a chance to discuss it again at our next meeting when we would look to pass it. Is that correct?
It may be May, it depends on how things go in CPS and discussion, but yes, it may be May, maybe June.
Maybe May, maybe June. Maybe now, maybe later.
Well, because we were all alerted, right, at our last Finance and Audit Committee, CPS Jen Wagner said to us, process is a little off track of what we thought the timeline was going to be, so we're pulling some things back. It gives us a little bit more room and flexibility to make sure ours is solid. And I asked the question, should we steamroll and go forward with what we think and then narrow it down and come back for a second ask? And she said, absolutely not. Take all the time you need, there will be one ask. So we're trying to be very diligent about that.
I think the Hector's done a nice job of outlining the key points that keep in mind, also things that are a bit new. Some of our spending has shifted. On the quality improvement, we have the outdoor equipment versus the classroom spending. We have our goal for expanded staff. And we are budgeting to be fully staffed. We have a estimate on our tuition assistance. So this page here gives you a sense of where what's really driving our upcoming budget. can start to see some of the numbers more visually here. And clearly our budget is one that I think is fairly realistic based on prior year's expenditures. And if you go to the numbers page here, you can compare what we think our year will end up this year, a forecast. You can see the differences between where we forecast we end the year and what the budget for next year looks like. The key changes listed there highlight what adjustments we make from our projected year end this year to what we are budgeting for next year. The total spend is really affected by two major things. One is that we maintain a contingency in our fiscal '24 budget, which shows 0 in our forecast for '23, and that's a $500,000 difference. And the other is the full employment that we are budgeting, and that's another $400,000. So the big change in spending from what we project to where we're going, 900,000 of that is explained by those two line items. Tuition assistance goes up. We are expecting an increase in the amount of tuition assistance. A 3% increase throws a pretty big number on the page. You can see the others line by line. The next page will give you what have we got on the next page? Somewhat similar on the next page, although I think one of them has the budget from '23.
That'll be the next page.
That's the next page. So, again, good time to ask questions, good time to review this. We can ask questions at the next meeting. So I open the floor to Hector to answer any questions.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions, and this is my age-old thing. We have a reserve, call it a reserve, underspend, whatever, that is somewhere in $12 million to $14 million area. Is that correct?
I studied this, Deborah, because I've always wondered about this, and so I put some study against this.
Good.
And yes, from the inception to the year that we forecast to complete, we have underspent the $15 million a year tax levy. Tax levy produces $15 million a year, and between Cincinnati Peace School Promise and Cincinnati Public Schools, we have underspent the accumulated $15 million a year. And to the tune of, as you see, roughly $12 million. And we got a slide up here. Now, that, it looks like 22 million, but we reserve 8 for the last 6 months.
Yes.
So it devolves down to about 12 million. And now that's combined between what Cincinnati Public School and Cincinnati Preschool Promise both report as their spending each of those years. So yes, that is there, and that is acknowledged by the Cincinnati Public School treasurer as well as by our own numbers. We also, together with Cincinnati Public, have a projection of how we will roll through the next 5 years, which is just projections. It's just a way to say, okay, here's how we can spend that excess million, which on this page shows the 24, 25, 26, and the stub year 27. Now, is that money belong to anybody? Does it belong to us? Does it belong to Cincinnati Public? Is it allocated somewhere? Does it sit in a separate bank account? The answer is no. It's acknowledged. It is, as a levy, it's obligated to go to preschool, but it is not in a designated separate account anywhere.
Well, I don't want to be here all night, and I know we have a recording and minutes and all of that, so I think it's very important, you know. My question, and I sent some questions in advance, was about the 12 to 14 million, and specifically, how do we know that we have what we say we have, and are those funds audited?
The only way we know that money is there is that we have an annual financial statement that shows what we spent. Cincinnati Public Schools provides us with their annual statement of what they spent. And we know what the levy funds have been. And so we know that there is an unspent, actually, close to 22 million. We both agree that we need to reserve 8 for the stub year. And so, yeah, but that's all there is, just partners that have agreed on the numbers.
Do you want to get a nice picture of me when I say this? I think there's some risk, and I'm just gonna state that. It's partners, it's numbers, but I do think there's some risk. So.
Well, and Deborah, also, there is no obligation for CPS to give that money to us.
I think there's some risk. Did you get a good picture?
Any other questions on the budget, comments? Like Tony said, we'll get more of a chance to refine this before we can ultimately approve it as a board.
And I would invite people, as you start to delve into what the budget is, please send it to us. We can't have a back and forth to respect our sunshine laws, but what we can do is all questions that we receive, bring those to the finance committee, who really does a deep dive, to make sure when it's back and presented to you as the board, all those questions have been addressed, that we have a clean budget that everybody understands the details of and are ready to move forward. I will call your attention to say this is as we all say, a draft budget. What I will promise you is that there will be some changes, right? Because there are some critical areas that we're looking at. The cost of quality committee will be addressing. We have not finalized our contract with our program and eligibility vendor, and as you know, those are going to be big ticket items. So draft, process, where we are in the data, but you will see a different number when you get to the final presentation to the board of managers.
Tony, anything else for the report from finance and audit?
No.
All right, thank you, and to that committee, and Hector, the support you provided that committee. I know it's been a big lift the last month or two, so thank you.
All right, all we have left on the agenda is observers' comments. Vera, I think you're our only one. Do you have any comments you want to add?
Well, I just wanted to say thank you and welcome to Ross Meyer for joining our representation here at your Board of Managers. And I don't know, Shara, what committee this would go to, but we would like to extend, maybe the Communications Committee, Terry. Like to extend that if there's any provider that needs assistance starting now through the summer with enrolling any P4s or 5-year-olds into a CPS kindergarten, I do have a team along with our communications department that we would be more than happy to come to that location and assist in any way with families, with interpreters, to ensure that they are enrolled, hopefully before June, into their school-age classroom of where they'll be going next year. So please, I don't know where you want to direct that, but we are open and ready to start showing up and helping with that process.
Quick question, so that's non-magnet enrollment, correct?
No, if they want a lottery school, they had to have submitted into the lottery. This is for neighborhood schools and we have open enrollment, so if they didn't do lottery, but there's an opening come later, which rarely happens, but we would be more than happy. We have excellent neighborhood schools and other locations that we'd be happy to get them enrolled into a CPS kindergarten.
Thank you so much for that, Vera. We will brainstorm with the Communications Committee and continue to do the things that we do every year that we call part of our Kindergarten Transition Initiative, which means we have a very nice instructional videos that one of our board members made, who couldn't be here today, Laura Sandra-Gratt, that walks people through the process, as well as doing a mail-out and touch point that we do to all of our 4s about to be 5s. So thank you for that opportunity. We'll continue to do those things, as well as get some input from the Communications Committee on amping it up this year.
Thank you.
Vera, thanks for those comments and for being here with us. Good meeting, everyone. I think we got through a lot, got to discuss some good substantive issues. Our next meeting is May 23rd. I know we'll have a lot of committee meetings between now and then. With that, is there a motion to adjourn? Oh.
I have one more thing, just to remind everybody, do your video clips if you haven't, and now that they're in the room, instead of not working, just to acknowledge our refined digital media team, refined vision digital media team in the back, and say thank you to them for always going the extra mile for a school promise. So thank you, gentlemen.
All right. Now, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
You're welcome. You got there. Is there a second?
Second.
Tony, thanks. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? Meeting adjourned. Thanks, everyone.